magicians, how are you? So welcome to yet another episode of the Money Magic Podcast. If you've just joined us, my name is Vangile and I am the host of the Money Magic Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about money routines and the spirit of money, and this is really one of my favorite topics. It is literally the first topic that I started to talk about when I started talking about money and ancestral money trauma. Up until that point, I used to just talk about budgeting and talk about emotional intelligence and back it up with a lot of hardcore data until one of the Money Magic students whom I've interviewed on this podcast, Teen Coach Nombeliso, was like, start talking about the meditations that you do in the Money Magic course, because that is where the magic is. And I started talking about the spirit of money, and it was very, very interesting. People would get really, really freaked out because I would use the word spirit of money and also ancestral money trauma, and people were like, oh my God, it is so witchy, it's so woo-woo, but it is actually so practical. So listen up. Today we're going to be talking a lot about that. I had to make some notes again for today's podcast because I wanted to start off talking about the history of money, because to understand what makes the spirit of money work so powerful, we have to understand the history of money. To most people, money is just numbers on a screen or this paper money that we get from an ATM or from bank, or the coins that we have, right? But actually, money has evolved over time, just as human consciousness has evolved. Money has evolved, and it's evolved to basically suit the times and suit our lifestyles. So let's talk a little about this, because this deeply ties into the work I do around ancestral money trauma and the spirit of money, and why we do a lot of healing and building our relationship with the spirit of money. So first thing, let's talk about the Barter system. So about 3,000, before 3,000 BC, so long, even before Christ, right? When you're using it's the Christian calendar, the Western calendar, so BC being before Christ, AD after the death of Jesus, right? So we used to have the barter system, and in that barter system, you basically pay for what you get in that barter system, you pay for your products and services with another product and service. It's not like money. So for example, if I wanted goats, maybe I would give you 2 chickens for 1 goat, right? So that's how people would do exchanges for goods and services, because really all money is an exchange for goods and services. This is what I believe my goods and services are worth in terms of monetary value, and then I give you something monetary wise that is equivalent to what I believe they're worth. So in the past, we had to figure out, our ancestors in the Stone Age had to figure out, a knife is worth maybe 2 eggs or 3 eggs. So then you just exchange your goods and services. And some people still use the barter system. But as you can imagine, that isn't exactly going to continue being a good measure of certain products and services as we evolve as human beings, right? And we start selling houses and we start selling land. How do you price certain things, right? Like, how do you price a goat against eggs, for example, hen eggs or something, or a bushel of wheat against cows? You get what I'm saying? So we needed easier systems. But before I even go into how things then evolved from that time period, I also thought it would be really, really great to talk about what I think the money archetypes of the day would have been in that age, right? So during the barter system, your common money archetype probably would have been the trader, right? Because you're trading goods and services and you're bartering for goods and services. So our relationship with money at that point would look more like we are more reliant on the earth for the things that we want and need, right? Remember, we haven't yet gotten to the coin system where we're actually pricing things according to gold and silver. We're still using animals and food to barter. So we would have had a deeper relationship with the earth, with animals, with plants, because that's where our wealth comes from, right? So a lot of our trust would have been tied to the land and its resources. Then fast forward 3000 BC. Right? We start to realize that, you know what, the barter system isn't working for obvious reasons that I have mentioned. We start thinking, okay, what if we start trading using shells and metals like gold and silver and copper? So if I have copper, then I can give you 3 pieces of copper, 3 pieces of silver, 5 pieces of gold, right? And in return, you can give me cows, you can give me food, you can give me alcohol. So then we start trading in that way. And that now introduces a whole new archetype into our relationship with money. Now you start having merchants, people who are starting to relate with money and making money from being actual merchants, not just trading, but actually now setting up shop and having coins in the shop. They can carry around bags and they can pay for things, right? And you start having people who are going to guard these coins and start determining this is how much 3 pieces of silver gets you, right? We start having more standardized measurements for whatever we buy. So then those people become these guardians, or they become the rulers of money or rulers of certain villages. So those are the archetypes that started to emerge, right? And our spiritual relationship with money then starts to change. Our relationship with money, what we hold and consider valuable. So it's no longer just land, animals, plants, trees that we consider valuable. We are now becoming people who are now willing to plunder the earth to get more copper, to get more gold, to get more silver, basically to get the resources under this earth. So now we are becoming much more focused on owning resources that are under this land, and we start to value those things more, right? We still value the land, and we still value animals, but we are willing to compromise land and animals to get to gold, copper, silver, all of those things, because that is what signifies land. That's what signifies wealth. So do you see how, as our relationship with money changes and what we consider wealth changes, even the things that we value start to change, right? And then we get to around about 600 BC. So in 600 BC, we start really, 600 BC, we start developing coins, right? So it's not just pieces of silver, pieces of gold now. Now we start having coins, and on the coins we may put a king, a queen, the flag of the land, whatever, right? So this then makes it easier for us to trade, and coins can be made up of the various resources. So we're still valuing all those resources, right? And what I found very interesting as I was looking more deeply into the history of money is actually paper money starts to come into play in the 7th century, right? Round about the 7th century. So apparently you've got countries like China, or dynasties rather, because in those days it was more dynasties. And they start to back paper money with the government. So something that we do right now started years ago. And I'm pretty sure, again, a lot of African history isn't always covered by your traditional Western books around money, but we really also valued livestock. So the addendum that I want to put here is, as I'm talking about the history of money, it's often from the Western textbooks, right? And for us, it took us longer as African people to not see and not to value land as much, to put gold above land and above, and to put animals and basically to put gold and silver above land and animals and plants and all that, right? But in different countries, different cultures evolved differently, right? That's not to say gold wasn't a valuable resource. For the very, very longest while, a lot of countries in West Africa were known as extremely wealthy countries, like in 3000 BC, all those times, because they had lots and lots of gold. They had lots and lots of diamonds, copper, all those things. So they were considered wealthy regardless, right? So, sorry, I'm just going to go back to my notes. Backtrack. So in the 17th century, in the 7th century, we start getting the first semblance of the banking system. Some countries start introducing paper money, and that paper money is being backed by the government. They're putting notes on there. They're using paper to trade. In the West, this would eventually evolve to different people being able to use paper to be able to put certain things on paper to say so and so owes me this, and when they go to the next town they'd be able to withdraw that money. So we're starting to get a banking system, and that would take a while to evolve, right? So in the 19th century you continue to have more paper money. Money has now started to evolve, but in the 19th century, they add the gold standard. So now you have money that is backed by gold. So it's not that any countries are starting to print money and people are starting to have more paper money and coins. But that paper money and those coins are not just money. It's not just money that you can have. It's that every country has a set amount of money that they can print depending on the amount of gold that they have. So money is now backed by gold, right? Remember before in some countries it was still backed by gold, but it was also backed by the government, it was backed by the king, it was backed by different things. Now they're starting to decentralize and they're like, well, it can't really be backed by kings and monarchies. Monarchies are starting to fall, things are starting to happen globally. So they introduce this gold standard. So that kind of falls apart with World War I and the Great Depression. Things are no longer going as planned. So now you have what is fiat money when we enter into the 20th century. So in the 1920s, you start to see the gold standard slowly disappear. Now we have fiat money. And that is the system that we've been living with actually, which is the banking system, which is you've got paper money, you've got a lot of that money is no longer backed so much by gold. The amount of money that governments print is now backed by GDP, but it's also backed a lot by trust and investor confidence. So your money has value today because people believe it has value today. So this is why you hear governments talk a lot about investor confidence and how so many political decisions, even if they harm so many people in the country or globally, so many of those decisions are made to keep investors happy. So that if enough people believe that the country is stable, or enough people around the world agree with your country's government's policies, then they believe in your currency. And that's literally what keeps your currency going. That's what gives a lot of your currency value right now. It is how much belief people have in the currency. Do they believe that your economy is politically stable? Do they believe that certain events won't rock the economy? And here's where it also becomes very, very interesting, because this then also plays into racial dynamics, it plays into historical oppression, all that. A lot of people, a lot of investors that we have globally are more likely to trust certain countries because of the hue of certain countries and the people running those countries, because of the way that their governments have been presented and what we have been taught to trust, right? And also based on certain things around corruption, based on grading systems, how certain bond agencies will rate your country. Are you a great country to borrow money to? Are you looking good politically? So there's just so much there right now. And that all impacts our finances and impacts our currencies and impacts our relationship with the money that we have and the currency that we hold. So interestingly enough, a lot of our money right now hangs by, or I don't want to say hangs by a thread because that's not the right thing, or maybe it is, I don't know, but it's basically based on how much trust we have and how much belief we have in this money. So if you look at certain economies around the world, once people stop believing in the country's government, in the country's political systems, in the country's vision, a currency can literally lose value overnight. And then people in that country also lose trust in that currency. And then that currency ends up being worthless regardless of how much money people have in the bank. So very, very interesting, right? So then I decided to play around with what are some of the archetypes when you start looking at the banking system, once you start introducing paper money to roundabout now. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency, right? I promise this all ties together nicely, right? So I had to write this down because I thought I would forget. So some of the archetypes that I thought about that would evolve from the 7th century until the 20th century would be obviously the banker and the investor. That's where we start, and we see that a lot. Especially in the 20th century, although you also see it long before the 20th century with the bankers. You start seeing a lot of people really having a lot of trust in the bankers. So you get the banker archetype, you get the investor archetype, these people that are investing in industrialization, investing in businesses. So now money isn't just the kettle that you have, the land that you have. It's not gold and silver and resources. It's also, wow, we're industrializing. It's also machinery. It's also businesses. It's also the amount of money that your business is making, and it's all sorts of interesting inventions, right? So with that comes the archetype of the visionary, the risk taker, the entrepreneur, the saver, the spender, right? And so our relationship with money from that time starts to really, really grow, right? We start to have more faith in institutions. So before, we value a lot of the land, right? We value our cattle, we value our crops. Not to say that we still don't value them, but then we start valuing the resources, everything underground. Then with the introduction of all these systems, we start putting a lot of faith in our systems. Because remember, our systems have such a huge impact on our currency and whether or not our currency is valuable. And we saw this through the Great Depression. We see it consistently as currencies crumble and as economies go from great to basically relics at times, right? I don't know if relic is the right word. Please don't judge me on my wording for this, but basically how economies are considered great economies and then start to lose their shine, so to speak. Because the interesting thing is that some of the world's greatest, wealthiest economies, and this is where it becomes so interesting with this 20th century, right? From the 19th century, or even I would say from the 17th century, we start to see a shift in what we value. Is that some of the countries that have the world's greatest resources are considered some of the countries some of the world's poorest countries, right? So even though they have all these resources on the ground, their currencies are not considered as valuable. And part of that is that it's because their institutions and their governments are not considered as valuable. That's a story for another day, or as important or as ethical. Again, a story for another day. So what starts happening over time is that our relationship with money, actually that spiritual connection to the land, starts becoming us putting more value on our institutions. Will our institutions survive? And you can see it in terms of the governments that we form, in terms of the fact that like we look towards our institutions even when certain things feel ethically wrong or ethically right. We first wait for our institutions to tell us, well, these are the decisions that we're going to make, and then we follow the rules of law of the institution. So our relationship with money starts to change then. But we're seeing money evolve. Again, our relationship with money is evolving. So enter the 21st century, enter Bitcoin, enter cryptocurrency, right? And we're starting to see now the evolution of money as well. So now crypto has come into play, and it is more about the digital age, right? We're starting to see the rise of NFTs. We're starting to see how money is literally what is on a computer screen. So sometimes it's not even something that you can physically touch, right? It's like a Bitcoin, and it's in the clouds, right? So it's really, really interesting. And we're starting to see how that is also starting to interact with our loss of faith in these very institutions. Part of why Bitcoin came into being, why crypto became a big thing, was, think about when crypto came into play. It was the year 2008. 2008 is when crypto starts to become a big, big thing. And what's happening? You're having the recession in the US. The US is entering one of its biggest recessions. You've got banks being bailed out. People are starting to lose faith in these institutions. And here comes something else that was already in the pipeline and being worked on. But now it starts to come as a real player for many people in the public. In the public, it's like, wow, let's now move on to the digital world that feels a little safer. So now money has evolved again. So the archetypes that we see coming from there are more like the tech-savvy innovator and the crypto enthusiast. Please don't mind me. I love working with archetypes, but it doesn't mean I'm always correct, right? I'm also coming up with ideas and just looking at how all this interacts with us and interacts with our relationship with money. So then I feel like how does our spiritual relationship with money start to change because of crypto? Well, what I think happens, right, is that it is our relationship with money then moves from just relying on institutions to one where we start to realize that our institutions are fallible. Our institutions won't always hold up. So we're starting to look for a relationship with money that is one of global connectivity and one of immediacy, so that I can get to my money whenever. And I don't always trust the government. So there's now a blockchain technology that makes it easier for me to be able to hide money, etc., or move money around without actually having to rely on governments. And it can literally move across countries again, so that you are not dependent on one particular country's currency. And Bitcoin is something that can be used across nations, right? So instead of like having the peso in Mexico and the rand in South Africa, or the US dollar in the US, or the Canadian dollar, we can all have one currency, and that currency isn't dependent on what governments are doing and what investors believe about my country. And it's just based on what we, the people, believe. And we are the ones that are driving the value of that currency. And that really stems from the fact that we are now starting to lose trust in our institutions. So money has now evolved, is starting to evolve again to reflect that, and to basically put more, to put more power in the hands of the people, right? So, and it's all just about decentralization and just working with the collective. So the collective is now, through crypto, it's an opportunity for us to determine the value of a currency. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the spirit of money. But before we do that, I want us to reflect on how each stage of monetary evolution has introduces new archetypes, right? And it's actually born out of our own evolution as human beings, as we realize the limitations of the currency of the time, and also our current needs, or our loss of faith in certain ways of doing business, or in certain ways of measuring value, and money constantly evolves. So money is not something that is stagnant. And our ancestors have been interacting with money in so many different ways, with different elements of money. And we carry all that wisdom, we carry all that trauma within our DNA. So all those different money archetypes continue with every iteration of money and with every evolution of money, right? And there's this interesting display of interconnectivity between economic systems and our human consciousness, right? So this is why, for me, I started doing the spirit of money work, right? I'm not going to say when I started developing the spirit of money work that I teach my clients, that I sat and had as in-depth an understanding as what I've just shared now, because this just basically evolved over time and over a few years of doing this work and really understanding that, whoa, this relationship with money goes back like thousands of years. We all have such a very interesting relationship with money, and it is based, and our ancestors and all those iterations of money are something that we instinctively understand, and our ancestors had different relationships with whatever those iterations of money were, and that relationship, those memories, those thoughts were carried on within our ancestral bloodline, right? Yes, this is a new iteration of money. Like when you consider the fact that retirement annuities and retirement as a concept and all these retirement products are literally very, very new on the market, right? For most of us, retirement annuities, retirement pension funds, all these things are so new. They are not even 100 years old. And we are having to learn about that. And some of us don't even grasp it because it's so new, right? But we have some deep understanding of money and what it is and how to manage it. We understand debt, we understand savings, we understand investments, we understand that land was investment, we understand property was investment, we understand livestock was investment, we understand that having land to grow crops is a form of investment, right? Even though the systems have changed, and as the systems change, and because we tend to value different things with every iteration, we tend to forget some of this core knowledge. But it is all there, and we all understand at our core how it all works, right? So when I started the Spirit of Money meditation, when I started the Spirit of Money work, rather, it was with all this understanding. I got guidance to start doing to record a meditation. So it started off as one meditation, which was just meeting the Spirit of Money, which was to really look at the way that all the different money archetypes that I carried within my DNA and still do, right? That my ancestors have had and that I have now been passed on to me, and that we as a collective consciousness have had around money. So when you think about just the history of money and consider that I've mentioned 3000 BC and before 3000 BC, right? That we've been interacting with money. So every time we interacted with money, we formed some kind of archetype around money, right? I just mentioned one or two archetypes of the day, but I am pretty sure that every age had hundreds of archetypes, right? I just lack the imagination or actually don't have the energy to figure out what all those various archetypes are. And all of our ancestors exhibited different archetypes. And somehow all of those archetypes, whenever we handle money and manage money, are archetypes that that our cells remember, that are activated within us. And we just tend to be more connected to one archetype to be more connected to certain archetypes than other archetypes. But with the Spirit of Money meditation, and why I didn't call it the Meet Your Archetype, Your Money Archetype meditation, it was that because money isn't just it. When we talk of archetypes, I think that most of us tend to think of more like human concepts, but when I was thinking of the Spirit of Money, I wanted archetypes that are also very energetic. So I've had people do the Spirit of Money meditations and say that their archetype, their Spirit of Money was a plant, their Spirit of Money was a river, and when you think about it, when you think of money and what I've just described, that makes sense, right? But if I said archetype, it could limit the subconscious mind, and it could even limit our ancestors when they are trying to convey to us what money is to them energetically, and and the kind of energetic imprints that we have taken on when it comes to money and that we relate to when it comes to money. I hope that makes sense, right? So in the Money Magic course, I created a lesson called Lesson 0. The Money Magic course actually doesn't start with Lesson 1. It starts at like ground zero, right? Lesson 0, the thing that started it all, which is the spirit of money work. The first meditation is about meeting your spirit of money. So you're just meeting the spirit of money. And then the second lesson, I should also say you're meeting the spirit of money, but you're also connecting with your ancestors, you're connecting with your spirit guides, you're connecting with your archangels, and they are getting you to meet the spirit of money. And your spirit of money can be anything. You can have multiple hundreds of different spirits of money. Again, because you have different archetypes around money, because you are a being that is eternal. You carry your ancestors' DNA. We're talking about the dawn of time. This is what your DNA carries, right? Ancestors that are like thousands. We're talking about thousands, 10,000s of ancestors for you to be here. And they've all interacted with money in different ways. And then the next meditation is building a relationship with the spirit of money, right? And I really, really love that, because then you start talking to your ancestors, start talking to your spirit guides, but you also start talking to your spirit of money, if your spirit of money can talk, right? If it's not a waterfall or a plant. But if it is any of those things, your ancestors and your spirit guides, the archangels start to guide you and tell you what all this means and what it represents, and can start even showing you memories so that you can start to understand why this is important and how this particular spirit of money is impacting you in this lifetime. And then the last meditation is connecting with the divine in money. So a lot of this particular meditation is really, yes, you're still connecting with your spirit of money, but you're starting to connect with the divinity in money and just your relationship with money, around money and the divine. A lot of it is because somewhere in that timeline between, I don't know, whenever BC, 10,000 BC or whenever, until now, we also then encounter religion, and money and religion start to really cross paths, and there's so much interplay between the two. And a lot of the organized religions then teach us that our wants are not good, that pleasure isn't great, and somehow this is all tied to money, because to be able to afford certain things, you need money. And if pleasure is wrong, then if like having beautiful clothes isn't something that is considered divinity, and you need money to buy those clothes, then money is also the root of all evil. Then there's just so much there. So it's about helping you heal that relationship that past life versions of you may have had with money, and some of your ancestors may have had with money, right? So you're starting to untangle that so that you can start to have your own unique relationship with money, and you can start to understand why you feel and think the way you do about money, right? So when I started doing this work around the spirit of money, my spirit of money came out as a clown. That was literally my first ever spirit of money meditation. So the way a lot of people are always interested, how did you get these meditations? Honestly, it's really, really interesting, because my meditations, a lot of my clients have seen me like literally just create meditations in sessions or in the middle of a live video. So a lot of my meditations are just something that just come to me. Some of it, I just feel like I remember certain things that, this is how I used to work in certain lifetimes. So I just know that this would work on people. Some of them, it's just like something that I deeply hear. And what I do is I write down what I hear and how the meditation is going to work. And then from what I've written down, I then record the meditations. So I recorded the meditations, and I usually test the meditations on myself and then on a group of clients, and then roll them out to clients en masse once I start to see what the meditations do, why I was asked to record them, because I also need to have a deeper understanding. So my Spirit of Money came out as a clown, but in the meditation, the meditation didn't have color. It was like a black and white movie. So the clown was more like black and white. So it's like with the nose, but the nose looks black. But I know it's a clown, and that like entire big clown face. I hate clowns. So when I started doing this meditation, I realized that, whoa, wait a minute. For me, my Spirit of Money is a clown. So the way that my subconscious mind sees money is as a clown. And because clowns are something that I am deeply terrified of, and I'm someone who loves to dream and think in color, right? I mean, I love certain movies that are in black and white, like obviously, like one of my favorite movies is Casablanca, and that's a black and white movie, but I prefer things in color. So for me, I realized that for me, money lacks color, right? It's this thing that I can't even see the creativity in it. I'm a writer, I'm a spoken word poet, so obviously creativity is huge. So can't imagine having anything creative with money. There's just no color. It's this thing that is like pale. It sucks the life out of me. So it scares me. So obviously every time I dealt with money, I would run from money, and I would obviously get panic attacks around money, because to me, money is a clown, something that I don't like, something I don't love. But also, I remember one of my coaches saying to me, isn't it interesting, because clowns also make jokes of things, and you're supposed to find clowns funny. So either I'm seeing money as something that finds me funny, like I am a joke to money, or money is a joke to me, right? So I can never ever take it seriously. So this was also why I was struggling to save money, to invest money, to make money. And there was literally no creativity. There was no room for me to be creative in how I paid back debt, saved money, spent money, and made money. To me, money was like, there was a black and white way of making money. And it made it very, very difficult with my personality to then start making money, right? And spending money and saving money and investing money. And once I started to understand that, it started to heal my relationship with money, right? So in last week's podcast, episode 98, I shared how I struggled to charge for my products and services, and I started doing the work around the vows of service. Funny enough, my Spirit of Money work came a few weeks after that, like the meditation on the Spirit of Money and writing it out and recording it all happened a few weeks after that vows of service work. And that's when I started to have a deeper understanding around money. And that's actually when I started getting super creative around how I made money. It also kind of coincided with when I started actually earning money from my business. For the first time ever, I ran a business where I could make money. But then it also changed how I started making money as I started to heal this archetype. And as this archetype started to heal, certain things started to change as well. My Spirit of Money constantly changed. The more I did this meditation, the more my Spirit of Money started to change. I've had my Spirit of Money be a Somalian pirate. I've had my Spirit of Money be, a non-gendered fairy, or a fairy that has two genders that comes together. Like, it's really, really weird to describe this, but I'm going to try. Where my Spirit of Money has appeared to me as a fairy that can separate into male and female, or be one gender depending on whatever it wants to be, right? So that also helped me a lot when I was really battling with what the personal development industry was teaching around a masculine and feminine dynamics around money. That's when I started to understand that actually money is both. Like, I can make money by being just balanced. I don't have to be in my feminine or in my masculine to make money. I can just be balancing the masculine and the feminine. And so that helped me a lot. Again, the meditations are not just, this is your spirit of money. It really goes in depth, and you're having conversations with the spirit of money. And the spirit of money is whatever your spirit of money is. It's teaching you certain lessons. It's teaching you how it came to be your spirit of money. It's teaching you your ancestral stuff around money. So the meditations are very, very in depth. And I must say, are very, very interesting, because also not seeing your spirit of money. People are always shocked when I say, tell me what your spirit of money is, and then we can start to work on understanding where you are financially. And some people will say to me, I can't see my spirit of money. And I've often known that when people can't see their spirit of money, then that means that physically, in the physical world, they often don't see their money. Even if they have money in their bank accounts, they just don't feel like they can see money or interact with money. And I've yet to be proven wrong with that, right? But it's very, very interesting. So that for me is what I love around the spirit of money. And I think because of that work, this is how my book, What's Your Money Personality? Changing the way Black families manage their finances, has also come into being, because I started to understand how we have different money archetypes and how our money archetypes have evolved, because especially as Black people globally, because of our history over time, right? And how that has then impacted our family dynamics around money. So what I would say is that our spirit of money, absolutely, and our money archetype, just like I share in the book, right? Our spirit of money is obviously deeply linked to our money archetypes, but it goes a lot further than our money archetypes, right? And that impacts, and how we relate with our spirit of money and our interaction with our spirit of money absolutely impacts our income, it impacts our debt, and it impacts our savings, and how we maneuver our finances. And I learned that just by working on my spirit of money that way. As I start to heal the way that I perceive money and my energetic perception of money and my money archetype, I can start to heal the way that I start to interact with money, make money, and save money. So that then brings me to, okay, so we've been talking about the spirit of money, we've been talking about the evolution of money, but how do we also then, on a very practical level, start to change our relationship with money beyond just the spirit of money, right? Because it's not just the energetics. I'm a big believer that we are incarnated onto earth, not just to learn the energetics, but that we are also here to learn earthly things. We are here to learn about these really hectic systems of government, of money. We are here to learn about oppression, to fight oppression, to try and make this a better place, to make the world a better place than we found it, right? So how do we learn about these really intense systems of money, and how do we navigate it so that we can start to change our relationship with money, start to build a better relationship with our bank account, and increase our income? So one of the things that I also had to learn, apart from just healing my relationship with money and my building a relationship with my spirit of money is to really start building, is to start having daily money routines, right? These daily money routines also impact the way that I perceive money in this particular lifetime, right? So yes, I saw money as a clown and maybe saw money as a joke, or money saw me as a joke, and money was freaked out, and I was freaked out by money and didn't want to have to do anything with money. But one of the things that I did was I also started developing daily money rituals. So one of my favorite daily money rituals is looking at my bank account for 5 minutes a day and then just observing my breath, right? So for 5 minutes a day, I would take a look at my bank account, start to observe my emotions, start to observe the sensations in my body, and just start to see how I felt about money, right? Because obviously, if I'm scared of money and money is a clown and black and white and I'm scared of it, then one of the things that I'm trying to do is retrain my amygdala not to respond to what it is seeing in my bank account. So one way to do that is to just observe and just observe my breath and train the amygdala not to respond. So to remain neutral, so that whenever I look at money, I start operating from a space of neutrality, right? So looking at my bank account every day. And then one of the things that I did was I also created a spending manifesto. So a spending manifesto is when, instead of a budgets, I've done an episode on here. So if so please look, I'm not sure what episode it is. I want to say episode 58 of the podcast, where I talk about why budgets don't work and what happens in our nervous systems when we try to do traditional budgeting of income less expenses, and then we try to live on everything else. So a spending manifesto is quite simple. It's basically drafting what you're going to spend or what you're going to buy and where you're going, how you're going to spend your money. But all that expenditure is linked directly to your values. So you start spending in accordance to your values. So yes, every day I would look at my bank account, and then I would start looking at where I have spent my money. Have I spent in accordance with my values? I would list out 5 core values, and I still do this, 5 core values, and start aligning my spending manifesto to my core values. And I share a lot about this on my other course, the Bank Account Challenge, also part of the Money Magic course, where I talk about how when a research shows that when we act in accordance with our values, we are more likely to maintain that behavior than if we are acting from a space of discipline. So what most of us do is we force ourselves to be disciplined with money, and it feels a little like we're whipping ourselves, right? And we're whipping ourselves into shape, and it becomes hard for us to stay disciplined, and one day we get frustrated and we blow all our money, right? Whereas when we're spending in accordance with our values, regardless of what the values are, not what we think our values are, but what our values truly are, we are then more likely to stay on track with that spending pattern. And that's exactly what we want, right? And then another ritual that I love and that I have is to write daily letters to money, right? So this is, and I talk a lot about this, again, this is also part of lesson 0 in the Spirit of Money work, where people have to do a lot of this work with, which is writing letters to money. So this is where you pretend money's a lover. Some people say because they've had not so great relationships with lovers. I've had clients say, I prefer to just think of money as my best friend. Then you write to money in that same way, and you would instead of writing positive things, oh dear money, I'm so glad you showed up for me. You write to money really straight from the heart. What is it that you're feeling, your frustrations? Think of what you would tell a friend or a lover, right? And you do these daily writings every day. And what it does is it basically brings up all those things that you've had around money. You're bringing them to the surface and you're putting them on paper so that you can consciously deal with them. Most of us hide so much about our emotions and feelings around money, especially if we've been following the law of attraction and the teachings of The Secret. What they've done, what a lot of those teachings do for most of us are like, yes, they teach us to be more positive, but most of the time they also teach us to spiritually bypass or emotionally bypass our own emotions and gaslight ourselves. So then we don't really get to be truly honest about what we're feeling, and it feels really, really scary or wrong to acknowledge it, and you can't heal things that you are not willing to acknowledge. So all those things are right under the surface, and people keep affirming, keep feeling gratitude, but they don't understand why they're having such a hard time manifesting their desires or manifesting the money that they want, when really what it is you want to bring things to the surface so that you can clear them out and heal, and then you do your positive affirmations and all that stuff, right? So the other thing that I also love as a money routine is to do a money check-in. So I've been doing that a lot in my relationship, well, now marriage, right? Where we do money check-ins twice a week. We created some really, really cool questions together where we check in with each other and we share things. And it's just mind-blowing how amazing that is. It's not an opportunity to find ways to manipulate the other person financially, to gaslight the other person, to financially abuse another person. So I also want to say, before I even advise people to do this in terms of a relationship, you can also do it with friendships. But if you do not feel safe and you may be worried that you may be in a situation where you're being financially abused, or where you'll be gaslit, or where you'll be made to feel guilty, then definitely, I don't recommend this, sorry. Do not recommend it. But I do recommend it if you feel like you have a friend or you're in a group where you feel like you can really be vulnerable and you can feel safe, and you won't be suddenly made to take over the bulk of the bills if you do well, or if you're not doing that well, and you won't be abused. Then by all means, you can get a group of people, get a person that you check in with, and create your own questions. I have my own questions with my husband that we share, where we do our check-ins, and we try to do them twice a week. Because he actually said to me, wow, I noticed that when we do these check-ins once a week, like my life has completely changed in terms of business. Firstly, he's a great entrepreneur, right? So he was like, but I just noticed that I get so much more clarity and I'm able to reach my goals so much faster. So can we just up it a notch? And obviously I was like, yes. And honestly, I feel like I had such a rough end of 2022 and 2023 and even the beginning of 2024 that these money check-ins helped me stay on track. They helped me keep to the goals and they kept me focused, and I have seen things start to turn around and change. Obviously, I've also been doing the bulk of the inner work, which is where our check-in questions also go into some of that work. What is some of the work that we need to do? What are some of the blockages that we notice? And it's been very, very, very powerful. This is also not to say that you cannot do the money check-ins on your own. By all means, create your own questions. If you're a Money Magic student, You've got the journal prompts. You can go to lesson 1 of the Money Magic course. There are tons of questions on there that you can do your own check-ins. You also have the weekly goal setting worksheet, which is a great individual check-in worksheet. And with that weekly goal setting worksheet, you also have the follow-up worksheet, which is only available to to my clients in the bank account challenge and in the Money Magic course, where on top of the weekly goal setting worksheet, you then have a follow-up check-in worksheet where you start to look at your financial goals and you start to check in with yourself. So definitely recommend that. Again, it's all about holding ourselves accountable. So yes, we do the energetic work, but we are also doing, so if you see me doing this, I'm looking at the balcony. Something's happening out on my balcony. So as we do that this energetic work, we are also doing, we're also accompanying it with practical money work, right? And that starts to shift everything. So, wow, I hope that this was very insightful to you guys. So if you've been listening to this and you're like, wow, this sounds amazing. A lot of this work that I talk about is also done very intensely in the Money Magic course, as I mentioned. So the Money Magic course is my signature course, and I absolutely love it. It is a course where you get lifetime access to this work. So the course is priced. There are 3 options. There's a once-off pricing option, which is $6,999 once off for the money to register for the Money Magic course. You get lifetime access regardless. It has over 150 meditations. There are challenges where the bank account challenge is maybe just like 5 days long. The first part of it in the Money Magic course, there you get the Money Magic course and you get the bank account challenge. The first part of the bank account challenge, which was 5 days long, has now grown. The bank account challenge course has also now grown into something more. I keep adding more to my courses, right? So as I get a deeper understanding of my work and I do more research, I add more meditations, I do my own work, I go to my past life regression therapists, I work with different coaches, I start to have a deeper understanding of my own work, and I really go deeper into more and more of this work. And the Money Magic course has been that. It's a body of work that continues to grow, and everything ties into everything. So the different meditations, so for example, the Spirit of Money meditation can easily tie in with lesson 1 meditations, right? Which are all about nervous system work and really remaining present with money and your emotions around money, and integrating your memories from past lives and this lifetime when it comes to money and money trauma, and even our ancestral money trauma, right? So then there are options in terms of how you can pay for the Money Magic course. There are is it like payment options or payment installment options? So you can pay for the course over 10 months, $888 over 10 months in equal installments. So $888 per month over 10 months, and you'll get lifetime access after you've finished paying for the course. But you get access to everything in the course as you pay, regardless, as you're doing your monthly installments. Then there's also the option to pay for the course $444 per month over 20 months, right? Again, you get access to everything in the course, and once you finish paying, you get lifetime access to the course as well. The reason why the Money Magic course and all my courses are lifetime access is because the more you do the work, the deeper you go in the work. But again, the Money Magic course is designed so that you never ever you don't have to do the entire course to get a breakthrough. And the course is not done in a linear fashion. You don't start from lesson 0, work your way down to lesson 23. It is impossible, because lesson 0 alone has 3 meditations, and each of the meditations has to be done has to be done several times before you can even move to the next lesson, right? And within that, there's also live classes, there's meditation, there's journal prompts, there's all sorts of things. So this is how you end up with 150 meditations, even though you've got 23 lessons. And let's not even forget that there are challenges within this. There's a debt challenge, there's a bank account challenge, there's like 5 or 6 income challenge, there's an intention challenge, there's all sorts of challenges, there's a live classes. Then on top of this, with the course, you also get 1 coaching session with me. So before you start the course, because you're never going to do this course in a linear fashion, you're going to have a session with me, and we're going to try and figure out and understand where should you start to get the best benefits from the course. So one person in the course can be doing lesson 0, another person can be doing lesson 23. And then twice a month, I do a fireside chat. So as you're doing the work on your own, you also come on Zoom and you get group coaching with me. So you do that twice a month, and you can ask any questions. We can do meditations together. We can do EFT tapping together. We can work through some of the meditations that you're working on together. I'm holding space. And you also get 1 month, the first month when you're in the Money Magic course, you get 1 month of free coaching with Numisa, whom I have interviewed on this podcast. And Numisa does womb and money work. So she will then teach you a lot of ways that you can connect with your womb. And she does money work with you as well, and takes you into her own an even more powerful way of that she works with these meditations and this work. And of course, the other practical elements of doing this work, the different money work, and the fact that, like, I've interviewed investment experts. You get access to people that have come onto the course to do interviews that some of these people I may never have interviewed publicly, right, on this podcast, but they become resources that people can reach out to and ask to work with them as well. So if this feels like something that you absolutely need to be part of, the link to the Money Magic course is in the description of this podcast. But you can also just shoot me an email, and you can schedule a discovery call with myself or with Numisa. And if you feel like you actually, yes, this is great, and maybe you're like me, you love online courses, but you love online courses and absolutely prefer one-on-one coaching. So yes, you'll do an online course, but you prefer one-on-one coaching to go with that, then definitely hit me up. I do have 1 spot left in my Visibility Mastery one-on-one coaching program. So definitely, also the link to the coaching page is in the description of this podcast. So go to that coaching page and then schedule a discovery call with me, and we can have a conversation. So if you have any questions, or you want to learn more about Spirit of Money work or anything, please leave a comment. If you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the comment section below. Leave us a review on Spotify, on iTunes, or Podbean. Let me know your thoughts on today's podcast. And of course, you're always more than welcome to shoot me an email, DM me on Instagram if this is something that was absolutely enlightening to you, or if you're confused about certain things, you'd like me to expand on certain topics, please feel free. Okay, I hope this has been enlightening or empowering for you, and it gives you a better understanding of your relationship with money and how to better improve your relationship with money, right? So I would love to leave you with a quote today. Today's quote is by P.T. Barnum, and it says, money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant. Again, money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant. Thank you so much, guys. Have a fantastic day further. Cheers.